How's it going, everybody? Nerds Rising here, and welcome back to the Nerd Cave. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my very strong Retro Cup team that I used to climb up over 300 ELO in the last 24 hours. Now, if you're wondering what makes this team strong, I think, first of all, the Venusaur on the lead is very surprising to a lot of people. I'm sure you guys are all thinking, why Venusaur? There's so many ice types out there, and you are right. But for the most part, a lot of the ice types are in the back, is what I've noticed. There's lots of Froslass in the back, lots of Dugong, Walrein, and I have seen a couple of Auroruses in the back as well. And a lot of people just aren't expecting you to run grass because of the fact that there's so many ice types. So a lot of people aren't really prepared for the grass types. There's a lot of things that are neutral to it, and a lot of Lanturns and a lot of water types that definitely do not want to see the Venusaur in it. As well, the Venusaur is going to beat all the fighters that the backline doesn't want to see. So I think the neutral, heavy-hitting Frenzy plants are just really nice in this meta. And then, of course, if we do see an ice type on the lead, we have two pretty good answers to most ice types. The Aurorus and the Dugong can both pretty much beat all of the meta ice types out there. So I think that Venusaur on the lead takes a lot of people off guard, and then the Aurorus in the back as the closer is the real star of the show. That thing with the Meteor Beam is just so good. It core breaks so many lines, and if you can give it a shield advantage, and if you can draw out their fighter with the Dugong safe switch, then Aurorus just absolutely goes off, and that's what you're going to see. I had all positive sets with this team, and I'm going to show you guys a huge variety of different leads, so that way if you're wanting to try out the team, you can just skim through the chapters here and just see how I play against a bunch of different leads. And one thing I will say is, build for what you're seeing in the meta. What I was seeing primarily was Human Catcher Bug's Dunsparce team. I could literally make an entire video just of me playing that team. At one point, I literally played it an entire set in a row. That team just over and over again. And I noticed that he, earlier today, put out a team that had an Aurorus on the lead. So keep in mind, again, you want to build for what you're seeing. If you start seeing a huge influx of Aurorus leads, you may want to consider running something other than Venusaur on the lead. But I still think that the Dugong safe switch and the Aurorus closer are just absolutely unplayable sometimes in this meta. So let's get right into it. It's going to be a longer video today. These are not going to be slowed down. These are going to be fully sped up battles because I have quite a few different ones I want to show you guys. So the first couple is going to be against Walreins. And Walrein is fairly neutral for the Venusaur. It is a lost lead in the 2-shield because the Walrein does outpace us. So typically what I try to do is catch eventually, but I noticed a lot of people were over farming. So every time I was trying to catch, they were not basically letting me catch, and they were sending the Earthquake on whatever I swapped in. So here I actually just play into the 2-shield, and my plan was going to be to catch the second or the third Icicle Spear. But what you're going to see is the opponent is actually just going to let their Walrein go down, which is actually totally fine by me because they have an Altaria here. I tried to bank a move. I realized I wasn't going to bank a move, and now I safe switch out of there. I want to preserve that Venusaur just in case they had a fighter. And sure enough, they do have a Toxicroak. They do shield the bait. This is absolutely incredible. And I believe they're going to have to throw here, and they do perfectly throw right on CMP there as I'm getting to the drill run. They take me out, but since I preserved that Venusaur, I'm going to have enough health and energy to get a Frenzy off on this Toxicroak. And even though it's resisted, Toxicroak is extremely glassy. It definitely does not want to take a Frenzy. And we're actually going to farm them all the way down with a Venusaur. And now, even though we have no shields, Aurorus is going to absolutely wall that Altaria. And that's a GG. So you always want to make sure that you preserve that Venusaur if you don't see the fighter on the lead, just in case they have one in back. And again, in the next battle, you're going to see the same exact thing. Walrein lead, I will try to catch it again. And this time I noticed, you guys may have noticed this as well, the opponent actually stopped attacking and waited a turn and then threw their Icicle Spear to make sure I didn't catch. So I'm about to pull off an incredibly high level play here. I'm going to wait a turn as well. We both wait a turn, and then I still catch the move. The opponent has to be absolutely fuming here at this point. And he's going to stay in here, and he banks an Icicle Spear, and then he switches out into, I believe it was a Defense Deoxys. Was it a Defense Deoxys? Yeah, it was a Defense Deoxys here. So effectively, we have drawn out their counter user, which is exactly what the Dugong is supposed to do. And the nice thing about the Dugong safe switch, when you compare it to, say, like a Walrein or a Lapras safe switch, even if you're in a really bad matchup, you have that Icy Wind, and you can basically render a Pokemon like Deoxys, for example, completely useless when it comes back into whatever your lead was. So, you know, obviously this is not normally a great situation for Venu, but they're now quad debuffed. Between them Psycho Boosting and me double Icy winning them, they're quad debuffed we live the quad debuffed Psycho Boost. We can CMP tie this Walrein on the Frenzy here, win CMP, and now we have Aurorus for the back line, and it's a Shadow Gliscor, and we take another dub there. So definitely always save switch out at some point, guys. Preserve your Venusaur, because if you don't and they have a counter user in the back, the counter user is just going to fully sweep your team, and it's going to be super rough. So next lead, I believe we have like 3 of these. They're all going to be Human Catcher Bugs team, just because, I saw so many of them. And the way I like to play this out is stay in with the Venusaur, get off at least one Frenzy, and then try to save switch. I try to catch a drill run usually if I can, and I do catch it this time on the Dugong. But again, I know that this team is going to be Jellicent and Froslass in the back, and you definitely want to draw out that Jellicent so that the Aurorus doesn't have to face it in the back. Because by drawing out the Jelly with the Dugong, we can effectively keep the Aurorus away from it, and then eventually we'll get the Froslass aligned to our Aurorus in the endgame, and a Froslass just wants absolutely no part of Aurorus whatsoever, and the Dugong is just so bulky that they're going to be forced to throw some energy here. Otherwise, we are going to make a third drill run, and we do make it. They decide to farm down, but now they're going to have to give up a shield. And we preserve the Venu as well, so that way we can realign it back onto the Jellicent here. So that's what we're going to do. At this point, I'm fully just going to take my shield advantage, let them Shadow Ball me if they want, and they bait, and then they try to snipe with the Froslass, and now Froslass is going to have to give up their last shield here. And now we have a 2-0 shield advantage, and this is just game over. We don't even have to shield this Shadow Ball. As you're going to see, Aurorus can pretty comfortably tank one Shadow Ball. It does do a lot, but we're not going to be able to get farmed down. I overfarm massively, and I'm basically going to come out of here with a Meteor Beam, and I might even have the Weather Ball. I'm not sure. I do have it. I throw one Powder Snow for proper timing, and here we go. Are we gonna KO? Yeah, we're just about gonna KO. We farmed down. We actually 2-shield flex on that team as well. I pretty much did beat this team almost every time. A couple of the battles I lost just because the opponents played super well and I misplayed. But in this lead, same exact team here. This opponent does throw on better timing here, and I'm recognizing that opponents at this high of ELOs in the 2600s, 2700s are going to be throwing on good timing, and good timing for a 3-turn move is going to be to throw one move, one fast move, and then your charge move. So I let them throw one, and I catch in the middle of their fast move, and this should be the drill run again. And now we're going to lure out that Jellicent, which is exactly what we want to do. This opponent, I think, plays this really well. They actually preserve their Dunsparce, and they bank a move, and hopefully, since they stayed in a little bit and overfarmed, I will hopefully be able to get to 3 drill runs, because if I can get to 3 drill runs, you can pretty much always guarantee a shield, and I'm not going to risk baiting. It's just such a risky bait, because if they no-shield it, we're going to be in a really rough spot, so I just fully let this go. I can barely tank this Shadow Ball. I live on like 1 HP, and now we're going to make the 3rd drill run. Probably going to be forcing a shield, and then we're going to be bringing in the Venusaur. Actually, they just let that go. They're going to give 2 shields to their Froslass, but this is still okay, because we can get a shield down from them with the Venusaur, but the opponent makes a beautiful catch onto their Dunsparce, and I think they probably Powder Snow my Venusaur down, so I bring in the Aurorus, and again, we can still tank one move, so I'm going to let this go, and we call the bait. And this is just still, even in the 2 shield, this is still just not that bad for the Aurorus, because basically we can tank one move and they cannot, and I'm just going to be full sending these Meteor Beams. And we do still have the Venu as a catch if we need to, but they try to call the bait. They had 2 shields. They thought we were going to bait. We did not bait, and we KO them through 2 shields. So even if you get the Aurorus into the 2-2 shield at the end game, it's still not that bad. It's better if you can get a 2-1 shield advantage for the Aurorus, but you can still win the Froslass matchup in the 2-2 shield advantage with the against the Froslass in the end game. So this is, I believe, the last battle against the Human Catcher Bug Dunsparce line, and as you see in this battle, the opponent actually shields, and honestly, that is best case scenario. The opponent shielding on the lead is just completely perfect for us, so I can overfarm massively. I do want to land a Frenzy Plant before I safe switch out of here, but again, we're going to assume they're going to throw on proper timing. We wait for them to throw one more, and then we catch in. Again, the drill runs on the Dunsparce are going to be 4-3, 4-3, and same for the Rock Slides. And again, we bring in the Dugong, we safe switch out of there, and we're going to lure out that Jellicent, and we still preserve the Venusaur with some energy to take care of this Jellicent later on. And we're in the 1-1 shields, and the Aurorus does a lot better in 1-1 shields than it does in the 2-2 shields against the Froslass, just because Froslass does ever so slightly outpace the Aurorus, so it can become a little bit of an awkward baiting game in the 2 shield, but For the most part, I found that just going straight Meteor Beam, I was able to win that matchup pretty much every time. And again, they make a beautiful catch onto their low health Dunsparce. Opponents at this ELO range are just very good, but this is okay. We still have health on the Venusaur, and I know that they're going to be coming in with the Froslass now. And all we have to do is just go straight Meteor Beam here. I can still tank one. I think I do call that since I only have one shield that I probably were going to full send it, so I do correctly shield the Shadow Ball, recognizing that a neutral Shadow Ball is still going to do more than a super effective Surf from the Jelly, and they do shield the Meteor Beam, but it does not matter. I realized there they were going to try to go for CMP, so I go for one extra there, and now I'm going to wait one turn to make sure they don't catch onto the Jelly. And I thought about undercharging it, but as you're going to see, this still KOs. Doesn't end up mattering because the Jellicent did just throw some energy, so we just outpace. And even if they surfed me there, my Venusaur had enough health where we could have just farmed them down. So GG there. That was Human Catcher Bug's line, how I like to play that. Really, it's a pretty good matchup for this team. And now we have, I believe, 2 Defense Deoxys leads. I did see this quite common. It's kind of an awkward matchup for the Venusaur. Obviously, we do have to respect the Psycho Boost, but at the same time, we can't really switch out right away because we don't want our backline to see this. So unfortunately, they do bait us, but we do outpace them as well. And as long as I can land some damage on this DD, I'm happy to safe switch into the Dugong. I do want to safe switch out just in case they have another counter to my backline, like a Lanturn potentially, or something else that doesn't want to, or that our backline doesn't want to see. And they do Thunderbolt me, but this is totally fine. And we do draw out a Lanturn. So this is completely perfect again. I preserved some of the health on that Venusaur just in case we needed it, and we are definitely going to need it because I think if I stay in there and just let my Venu go down, then that Lanturn probably puts in a ton of work against the backline. And as you see, Dugong can still hold its own against the Lanturn. We forced them to Thunderbolt us, or we would have made another drill run. And now Venusaur has enough health here where we may actually be able to commit to the full Vine Whip farm down. We'll have to see. We tank the Thunderbolt, and if we can do this in 5, and we do it in 5 Vine Whips, just as they're getting to the Surf. And sorry, I keep drinking water, guys. I was out all day with my wife, and I had a very long day of eating and drinking, and it's super late at night, but I did want to get you guys this video just because I had such good success with the team. One of the better teams I've put together this year, and we have a Lickitung in the back, and what you guys are going to see is Lickitung just gets absolutely destroyed by Aurorus, because even if they Power Whip, we can still live it. Most of the time they do bait, but their bait move is going to be resisted, so that's a really, really nice feature of Aurorus, that we resist the body slam damage, and we comfortably take out the Licky there in the end game, and that's a GG. So yeah, that battle, the DD lead's not too bad typically, because Venusaur is just a little bit more comfortable. We have a little bit more comfortable matchup than the DD, because the DD has to debuff itself in order to do any meaningful damage to us, and by the time they even really make 2 Psycho Boosts, we're pretty much at the back-to-back Frenzy Plant, so typically we can always at least get some damage off and land one, which is really what I want. And this time they actually safe switch into a Dugong, so they are super weak to the Venusaur. Like I was saying, there's just so many teams that are unprepared, and here I make an absolutely nasty catch there. I let them throw on their proper timing, and then I catch the double resisted Icy Wind, and this is going to give us a perfect farm down. They're probably going to debuff us again here, but again, we can basically render that DD useless when it comes back in. We're going to get multiple debuffs onto it, and even though we're double debuffed ourselves, we're not going to be doing that much damage. Our Venusaur is going to be able to come back in here and not really be threatened by that Psycho Boost. I should have just thrown right away. I was trying to throw on good timing there, and I let them get to their Thunderbolt first, but it's okay, because we're still going to get multiple debuffs onto this thing, and they're not probably going to be able to counter us down. And there, I think I actually just made a snipe, recognizing I didn't want them to farm me down. I sniped them, they've got a Froslass in the back, and we are going to make the Frenzy, but unfortunately, the game lags, and it doesn't let me click on my move, but as you guys are going to see, we still have this game in the bag, because again, we can tank one move, they cannot. We're going to be going straight Meteor Beam, and even if they somehow do make 3 moves before we make 2 Meteor Beams, we have enough health on the Dugong where we're not going to be able to get farmed down, so we could end up just saving our shield for the Dugong if we needed to, and they tried to call the bait, and we still nuked them. So I had that happen quite a bit. Froslasses realizing they were in a pretty tough situation, and I just do not bait very often, and I landed so many Meteor Beams on these Froslasses through shields. It's absolutely incredible. In this battle, I'm going to be showing you guys a lot of Dragons coming up, I believe. Dragons are another tough matchup for the Venusaur, but they stay in and they chip us, and we get the Dragonair at half health, we tank a move, and then they come in with the Cresselia, and again, this is not a great matchup for the Dugong, but since we debuffed them, we are going to tank this Grass Knot, and we are going to basically render this Cresselia completely helpless against our Venusaur, because really I did see a few Cressalias, and I did not run into a single one that was running Future Sight. So all they're going to be able to do really here is throw resisted Moonblasts, and they already are resisted, and now they're resisted and double debuff. So we can easily just farm up to 100 energy here, tank 2 Moonblasts easily, and then we're going to be able to Frenzy Plant this thing, get rid of it, and still have a ton of energy for whatever comes back in. And if they come in with their Shadow Dragonair does not want to tank a move from Venusaur, especially at half health. And I think I do just bait here, recognizing even if they called it, that the Frenzy was going to do so much damage, and they do respect it. And now Aurorus with a 2-to-1 shield advantage is in a Dunsparce matchup. And Dunsparce can hit the Aurorus here for super effective damage, but with shields in play, there's just absolutely nothing this Dunsparce can do, because we can't actually tank one move. The opponent, I believe, is going for Rock Slides here. You do want to go for Drill Runs, but it really doesn't matter, because either way, they're going to need 2 moves to KO us. We can tank 1, and despite the rollout buff in terms of damage, it's just still really not a great move. As you're about to see here, we could have even taken a Drill Run. We tanked the Rock Slide, we farm them all the way down, and now we're going to destroy this thing with a Weather Ball. And even if they did farm us down with the Dunsparce there, we could have just come in and farmed down with the Venusaur and then frenzied the Dragonair, and still would have been a GG. So as you're seeing, Aurorus with a shield advantage is just so good. Another Dragonair lead here. Again, we're going to bring in the Dugong Safe Switch, and they bring in a Vigoroth here. This is not the best thing for Dugong to see. They are unfortunately going to make their Body Slam on CMP, and I'm not willing to commit a shield here, but what you're going to see is a second move from this Dugong, and we will get to a second move, will actually pressure this Vigoroth. And what I'm recognizing here is I can still tank this Body Slam, and the opponent is going to be expecting the Icy Wind, knowing they live it, and I'm going to be full sending the Drill Run here. Do they respect it? And no, we actually take switch advantage there. They bring back in the Dragonair. I have the Aurorus. We will have to tank one move. I think I do shield it, and despite the fact that we are going to be down a shield, there's just really not going to be a lot the opponent can do, because what you're going to see is they have a Lanturn in the back, and switch advantage there was absolutely everything. We're going to build back up to the Weather Ball, bank it, and now Venusaur is going to put in a ton of work against this Lanturn. Yeah, there's just, at this point, even though the opponent has 2 shields, there's just really not going to be a lot they're going to be able to do here, because we're still not in Thunderbolt range. I do throw on CMP as well, just to force them to make the next shielding decision, and they do shield it, and I still do not have to shield. And I think that my Vine Whip should put this thing low enough to where Aurorus can just sweep up in the endgame. So yeah, I'm going to get my Frenzy Plant off here. Doesn't really matter if they shield it or not. They elected to just save their shield for the Dragonair, but they're not going to make 2 moves before I make 2 Weather Balls. And I still think, since it's a non-Shadow Dragonair, we could probably even tank an Aqua Tail still. And yeah, we're just going to double Weather Ball them. They're not at the back-to-back moves. And we take another win. So, by the way, if you're wondering if I lost any battles, I did lose. I did actually go on an 11-game winning streak as well with the team. I only lost maybe like 5 or 6 battles. A lot of them were just hard counters, but I did put some of them at the very end of the video. So if you're wanting to see the losses, you can skip forward to the end. But a couple of the losses were just against double fighter lines, where if you see a double fighter line, you just lose. It's as simple as that. There's just nothing you can do against double fighter, really. And I believe in this battle we had an Altaria lead, and they answer our Dugong with a Dunsparce. And what you're going to see is this is actually not that bad of a matchup for Dugong. We do shield the first here, recognizing that we definitely want to try to fight for switch if we can. And what you're going to see is this is a very, very uncomfortable matchup for Dunsparce after a couple debuffs. They are forced to shield there, and since they're now double debuffed, this Rock Slide is not going to KO. And as you saw there, I clicked on the Drill Run, recognizing they could live an Icy Wind. And this Drill Run will just about KO, so they're actually going to be forced to double shield here. And they're recognizing here that they're not going to be able to farm down, so they're forced to dump all of their energy here. So we take both shields from them, we get them super low and they're debuffed, so I don't have to shield my Venusaur. And at this point, I can tank this move, and then I'm going to come in and Powder Snow down with the Aurorus, give my Aurorus a 1-0 shield advantage. And what do they have in the back? And it's another Licky Tongue. And like I said before, this is not a comfortable matchup whatsoever for the Licky Tongue, especially when we have shields. And the Meteor Beam is just so nice. We land it and we boost our attack. And at that point, yeah, the opponent just realized I was going to shield up my Aurorus there and just double Weather Ball their backline and win that game. So next battle, again, another Altaria. They safe switch into, or they bring in their Lanturn to answer our Dugong safe switch, and Dugong can put in so much work against these lost matches. Obviously, we're not going to be able to take the match against the Lanturn if they don't want us to, but we can get a shield, or we can basically do a ton of damage to them and get them low. And they actually elect to shield the first one here, which is perfect. As you see, we do live a Thunderbolt. So basically, unless the opponent gets into this matchup super quickly, you can pretty much always force a shield advantage from it, or you just straight up take out the Lanturn with 2 drill runs and plus a couple ice shards. And here, we did get a shield. We're going to just come in with the Venusaur. We're going to farm them all the way down and then just hope that an Aurorus here in the back with a 2-to-1 shield advantage can sweep. And sure enough, there's a Jellicent in the back. Jellicent's not normally a great 2-shield matchup for the Aurorus, but in the 2-to-1 shield advantage, even if they shield up our first Meteor Beam, it just puts them in a really awkward situation because the first one doesn't KO, so if they shield it, then the second one definitely KOs, and then we're double debuffed, or double buffed, excuse me. So they're actually going to let the first one go, but this is just going to let us go straight Weather Ball now, outpace them, and then they're forced to shield a Weather Ball now, and we still would have lived a Surf even if they got to it and still got to a move against the Altaria. So again, Aurorus with a 2-to-0 shield, or 2-to-1 shield advantage, or a 1-to-0 shield advantage really just absolutely goes off on these teams. We take another lost lead there, and that is a GG. So yeah, guys, as you've seen, by the way, these are not in order of how I played them. These are just in order of based off of leads. So there's some mixed ELOs here in here. Like the last one was like the 2500s, but the one before that was like 2780s. So again, here we have another flyer, a Noctowl lead. Again, we're going to bring in the Dugong, and this is exactly what we want to see. We draw out the Medicham, we are going to debuff it, and I was thinking here, I believe this is one of the earlier Medicham safe switches I had. I was thinking maybe a drill one would KO here, but unfortunately it doesn't. So maybe you would be better just double Icy Winding it, but still, by doing that, it doesn't allow them to get to another Psychic, and this is just going to be a single debuffed Ice Punch, which I can live. So unfortunately, against the Medi, we weren't able to get a shield advantage, but we were hopefully able to draw out their best answer to the Aurorus, and we were. It's a Licky Tongue, and now this is not the 2-to-1 shields, but this is still a very uncomfortable matchup, because if they let the first one go, I could probably just go straight Weather Ball them, and then they're in an awkward situation. So here I decide to call the bait. I have 2 shields, and it is the Body Slam. We are going to basically now have this game in the bag, just going straight Meteor Beam. Do they respect the second one? No, we're now in 2-to-0 shields, and I believe now I'm expecting them to just go straight Body Slam, but I do want to maintain some health on this, and I think at this point I just farm up a ton of energy here, and I think I just basically farm up to the back-to-back Weather Balls, because now I'm double boosted. No, I just go straight for the Meteor Beam. That makes a lot of sense, because do I still have a shield? No, I think I just knew I was going to outpace the Noctowl, yeah. And what I actually learned is that Aurorus wins CMP, so if Aurorus wouldn't win CMP against the Noctowl, I could have over-farmed there even more on the Licky Tongue, and probably just gone for double Weather Ball, but I recognize there I won CMP against the Noctowl, and I end up just farming down with Bind Whip on the Noctowl there, so yeah, pretty meta team there that we take down with the Aurora sweep in the back. And here we have a Froslass lead. I didn't really see that many Froslass leads, but what I found with Froslass leads is they typically have things in back that are weak to ice. As you're seeing here, the opponent is staying into our Dugong safe switch, and they're actually chipping us, which tells me that they do not have the best answer. And what you're going to see here is the opponent makes a beautiful play here. They're going to catch the Drill Run onto a Shadow Kingdra, and since I threw the Drill Run here, I'm not going to be able to make a move. They're just going to be able to farm me down. So very nice play by the opponent, but the fact that they took so long to switch out tells me that they definitely have something else that's weak to ice in the back, and I believe it ends up being an Altaria, if I can remember correctly. But here, I just recognize that my Venusaur doesn't have a lot of play against Froslass, so I call the bait, and they actually did bait me. And it's actually an Oranguru here, so not sure why they didn't bring the Oranguru into the Dugong, but either way, we got the shield with the Frenzy Plant, and now we're going to be able to just go straight Meteor Beam on this Oranguru. And this game's going to basically be over because Froslass, again, does not want to see Aurorus. We throw it in the middle of their confusion for proper timing. And I can't remember if they shield this. No, they do shield it, but now we're still going to outpace them to another one. We still have a shield, and the Froslass does have energy, but they don't have enough energy to get to 2 moves before I make my next Meteor Beam. And yeah, they surrender there. So another lost lead, another nice win by Nerds Rising. What do we have now? A couple Lanturn leads. I believe I did see maybe 5 or 6 Lanturn leads, and this, I believe, is I can't remember what Yonkas's lead was, but I did see quite a few Shadow Kingdra safe switches with an Altaria in the back, so pretty much anytime you see the Shadow Kingdra you can just basically expect that there's going to be another dragon or something else weak to ice in the back. I guess the other opponent had the Oranguru in the back, but I think that was kind of the exception to the rule rather than the rule itself, because most of the time when I saw Kingdra, there was going to be another dragon in the back, and in this case, the opponent did bait me with the Octazooka, but what I recognize here is it doesn't really matter, because Altaria, if it is another dragon in the back, they're just going to be able to do absolutely nothing against my Aurorus. So even if I have a shield disadvantage, Aurorus is just going to absolutely feast on this back line, and we're going to bring in the Venusaur here, just tank all this energy. I'm going to be fully expecting them to bring in whatever their backmon is, and sure enough, there's the Altaria, and Altaria just wants absolutely no part of Aurorus. For some reason, they stay in. They should just be top lefting here, but they just let it go. So maybe that was their way of surrendering without surrendering. But yeah, they actually do end up surrendering there. So GG there. And I believe we have maybe one more Lanturn lead. And then I think I threw a couple losses in here at the end. So if you made it this far, guys, congratulations. This is a very long video. But we have a Walrein safe switch. And I included this battle because if you're fast enough with the Aurorus, you can actually, as you see there, I was only one turn behind, or one fast move behind, so we actually get to the Meteor Beam at the same time as they get to the Earthquake, and a Meteor Beam from a regular Aurorus, I guess there's no Shadow Aurorus, but a regular Aurorus still one-shots a regular Walrein with Meteor Beam, as long as you get in fast enough. If they even get two Powder Snows head start on you, then you're going to be forced to shield an Earthquake. But if you get in fast enough, you can actually just straight up take the zero shield with Aurorus. To be honest, I wasn't even expecting that Meteor Beam to one-shot. I kind of thought that they would be able to live that on very low HP, but yeah, we just straight up one-shot it from full health. I'm not sure. I did do, I guess, 8 Powder Snows worth of damage on the Walrein. I'm not sure if it one-shots from full health. Somebody let me know in the comments if you want to. Does a Meteor Beam do 100% of the health of a full health regular Walrein? I'd be interested to know. But anyway, we just have perfect alignment here. We do bring in our Dugong to the DD here, just knowing that Venusaur can sweep. I get a bunch of debuffs onto them, and yeah, Venusaur, I was just going to save my shields for the Venusaur at that point. Pretty easy RPS win there, but I kept that in just so you guys could see the Walrein get blasted. And I guess we did have one more Lanturn lead. I think I kept this one in because sometimes I had Medicham safe switch into my Venusaur, even though like we kind of wanted to keep our Venusaur onto the Lanturn. This is still not that bad because Venusaur does do pretty well against Medicham because we equal them in pace to the Frenzies, and we can actually live one Ice Punch. So here I know I'm just going to outpace them, and since I landed one, I actually decided to just safe switch into the Dugong because I do want to save the Venusaur for that Lanturn, and I'm figuring once the Lanturn is gone and the Medicham is gone, that there's no way they have another answer to Aurorus in the back, because most back lines are going to be pretty weak to the Aurorus, and we do draw back out the Lanturn by safe switching into our Dugong, and now basically we can just force them to throw here. If they don't Thunderbolt us, we will make another drill run, and they go for the Surf, and yeah, this game is just over, because pretty much Venusaur and Aurorus together are such a strong core. They can pretty much beat anything, and they have a Noctowl in the back end. We show them the Aurorus, and I believe they do. Do they even surrender here? They should be surrendering. There's absolutely nothing they can do here. I actually call the bait as well, and it's a Sky Attack. And yeah, after we call their bait there, they just had absolutely enough of that matchup and they surrender. So I believe the last two battles here are going to be losses. I kept some losses in here just so you guys can see. This team's not perfect. It does have some core breakers. Cofagrigus is pretty neutral on the lead. But here I was kind of thinking, I was kind of worried about this matchup because I was recognizing that if the opponent has a Ghost on the lead, they very likely have something in the back that's going to beat something like a Licky Tongue or another normal type that has a Ghost move. So I was kind of worried here there's going to be fighters in the back. So I preserved the Venusaur here. I do say switch into the Dugong, and they do have a Medicham in back end. We should be okay here as long as it's not double fighter. But yeah, if it's double fighter here, we're just going to be in really big trouble. And we'll have to see what's in the back. We do play out a very close loss there in that battle. Again, I tried to drill run them, hoping that it would KO. Maybe just hoping that the Medicham had worse IVs, but unfortunately, they do live it. Now we're going to take the single debuffed Ice Punch, just like we have been. And I believe here, I kind of just recognize that if there's a second fighter in the back, then it's game over. So I just let the Venusaur go down, realizing they still have 2 shields. So even if there is another fighter and I preserve the Venu, I kind of just had to play out my win con that they had something in back weak to Aurorus, and it was a Shadow Machamp, which is the opposite of weak to Aurorus. And yeah, they just absolutely slaughtered me there. And I'm not sure what the cat's doing in the background, but last battle here, we do have an Aurorus lead, and I'm not sure, I forget if I mentioned this in the intro or not, but Human Catcher Bug did come out with an Aurorus lead team. I really didn't see hardly any of them on the lead. I think I maybe only had 2 Aurorus leads, but unfortunately, I think if Aurorus starts showing up on the lead quite a bit, Venusaur might be a little bit trickier to use, because similar to a Walrein matchup, they're just going to outpace us, and I think I do try to catch here, but recognizing if I fail to catch that the Aurorus can just one-shot whatever I have in back. Fortunately, I do catch the Weather Ball, but I believe this ends up being like a Medicham. Yeah, they have a Medicham in the back end. This is just really, really rough. I was thinking about maybe I should have caught on the Dugong. Maybe that would have been the safer play, but once you guys see what they have in the back, this game was over anyway at the very beginning. But I think if you're starting to see a bunch of Aurorus leads, I think you could very easily switch out the Venusaur for something like a Medicham or something else that hard beats fighters and Lanturn. So you'd have to think of what does really good against that. So Medicham might be good. Potentially something like a Hypno even. A Confusion Hypno might be pretty well because it beats Medicham pretty comfortably. And Deoxys, and it can also do pretty decent against Lanturn. But here, they basically are just going to... I just stay in here just in case they have like... I don't know, maybe like an 11 CP Smeargle in the back, or maybe just in case the opponent has like a massive heart attack and just dies on the spot. But unfortunately, it's a Lanturn in the back, and yeah, we just lose that game. So GG's there. That is the last battle, guys. Thank you for bearing with me through this very long video, but I hope that if you decide to run this team, that you know how to play it now, basically, after watching all those battles. So congratulations if you made it this far. But yeah, this team is super good, guys. It's super, super good. It's very versatile, and basically the goal, again, is going to be safe switch with the Dugong, draw out that counter user or the Lanturn, take it out with the Venusaur, and then give your shield advantage to the Aurorus and let it sweep. And even if you don't get Aurorus' shield advantage, as long as you still have shields for it, it can still just absolutely core break teams and sweep up the back line for days. So thank you again for watching, and I think that's going to be all for the video. So I will see you guys in the next one. If you are not subscribed, please consider doing so, because the more subscribers we can get, the more Pokemon my wife will let me play.